Baby, I still wanna tell you everything I do. You're the first person I wanna reach to when I experience something good. I still wanna believe that we can make this work in time.
I am here with our special guest, Amy Steinberg,
Yay!
yay, Amy, who is going to be appearing in concert at Unity of Jupiter this coming Saturday evening at 7 p.m. So I wanted to set aside some time and let us all get to know Amy a little bit better and find out what kinds of things inspire her. So why don't you start off by giving us a little bit of background, how you got started, your life, that sort of thing?
Well, that's such a big question. But, I thought about it after, so y'all know he sent me these questions in advance. So I actually thought about these things, which is cool. You know what I mean? Because often you don't get to think about these things. And so that was really cool. And what came up was that, from a very, very young age, before I can even remember, I started taking piano lessons and I was in the theater. I went to theater camp. I was involved with performing and music and art before I can really remember, and I grew up on the East Coast until I was 8 in Boston and then Florida, and went to performing arts high school, and, was really just on the track to be, an artist it was just my nature, from a very, very, very young age. And, so my background is theater and music and piano. Yeah.
Okay. So when did you start thinking about possibly doing this as a profession?
I think I kind of knew from middle school that this would be what I did. In the capacity, I don't think I was sure. I think I wanted to be a rock star, but I also loved teaching. I always loved making other people shine their light in whatever way, making other people feel comfortable in their own skin. Because I feel like that kind of, as of course I have insecurities like anybody else, but I am very bold, and I think that that's a gift. I think it can also, all of our gifts can also be our, the toughest thing that, our shadow as well.
Right.
But I like to teach people to be bold. And that's
Mhm.
so, as an artist, as a performer, I think I always wanted to do that, whatever that looked like. Whether it was, as a professor or as a performer. So yeah, so really from a very, very, very young age, the very first thing I wanted to do is what most kids want to do, which is either be a vet or a brain surgeon, you know? But then like as it became clear that performing and creating was my nature, it's like what we teach, right? That when you're good at something, it's a gift. It's
Right.
God's way of working through us and as us.
Absolutely. So was there a specific point where you decided that you wanted to do music with sort of a spiritual bent?
This was a question I was just talking about with my partner, and I remember there's a couple things, but the very first singer songwriter I ever saw was Jonathan Brooke in New York City when I was in my early 20s, and it was in a basement of one of these clubs, and she was standing on stage and she had her guitar and she was talking, and the room was, you could hear a pin drop. And I was at that point playing like coffee houses and very loud, and I just thought I would love to be able to be on stage and connect with an audience in this way that was very spiritual. But this is before I found New Thought, right? So
Yeah.
then, the second wave of knowing that the spiritual stuff was the first time I played a center, which people had been trying to say, come play my church. And I was like, I'm Jewish. I don't play churches. Just that word church can really
Yeah.
scare
Yeah.
people away, whether you're brought up in the church or you're Jewish, or of
Right.
another faith in general. But now I love the word church.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the first church I played, I remember I was like, y'all are so quiet. You know what I mean? They were listening. And that
Right.
was really, really powerful. And I was singing the principles, because that's the truth is the truth is the truth. You know what I mean? And then
Absolutely.
to find sort of my tribe in New Thought was
Yes.
like a gold mine, spiritual gold mine for me. And then from that, that was in like 2008. And since then, it's been like I play, all the churches, all the events, all the places, and now I'm on the ministerial track
Yeah, so
because
let's talk about that. That wasn't part of my questions, but you mentioned it. So,
yeah,
uh, are you on the track to become a Unity minister or?
I am on the track to become a New Thought minister, religious science technically, but it's not through Centers for Spiritual Living. I'm working with Reverend James Mellon. I don't know if you know James out of
I've heard of him.
LA. He's
Yeah,
the reason why I resonate with him and how it all happened is very divine. I was the music director at a conference and he was there, and I had known him for years, but he was there because he was the keynote speaker, but also because his students were graduating from ministerial. And I connected and bonded at this very kismet situation where what they did was they wrote all of our names on little pieces of paper and they put them randomly around the room and said, go have lunch with a stranger today. And I went and sat next to this girl who was graduating, and we had so much in common. And she was like, you have to work with James. And I began studies with him. It gives me chills thinking about the divine wildness of the whole thing. So now I'm in year one, I'm completing my first year, and it's just awesome, and I'm learning all about unity as well, and that conference was actually at Unity Village. So and I love the principles of unity, so I love how I'm learning and seeing that unity and Centers for Spiritual Living and New Thought, this is through Emerson, where I'm going to be, where I'm studying, we're all kind of coagulating. We're learning that when these pulpits open, if it's a unity pulpit, for instance, Darlene Strickland, who's the wonderful minister up here at the Blue Ridge, she was trained in Centers for Spiritual Living, right? And then she went over and finished with Unity or whatever. But it's kind of all the same teachings, right? That God is
sure.
inside of us. It's not, and it's everywhere present, but it's not something that we, drop to our knees and beg, you know, although sometimes
Right.
that works too.
Yeah,
I don't rule that out.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your musical inspirations and influence. You mentioned, being in New York and going to the coffee house and that sort of thing. Who are the performers that really you resonate with?
Mm. Well, um, I kind of feel like I do something a little bit different. And it's interesting because in ministerial class this week, my teacher was poking me, like, who's your mental equivalent? Like, who are your, and I'm kind of like, the only thing that really comes close to what I vision is like Bette Midler meets Oprah meets Deepak meets like kind of a spiritual, funny, uplifting. It's kind of I feel, I think we're all so individual. And I'm not trying to say that I'm special. I feel like I am, but so is everyone. But what I do is kind of hard to find somebody that does exactly what I do. Karen Drucker does it. She gets up on stage and she's funny, but she's also making you cry. And
Yeah.
she's probably the person that's closest to what I do, would be Karen.
Or Jana Stanfield, are you familiar with her?
Jana,
Yeah.
and she's a good buddy of mine. We've co-written a few songs together, and Jana's another one, absolutely. So it's like inspiring, uplifting, funny, maybe a little blue. That might be where I differ a little bit. I can be a little blue sometimes. That's where the Bette Midler stuff comes in, and
They're
and
the Harlots.
yeah.
Yeah. So one of the questions I had written down here was if there was a musical artist from the past that you could perform with, is there any particular one that you would choose?
Well, it would be Bet for sure, but we watched the Whitney Houston story that's out there now on Netflix, and she's my favorite voice that's ever been incarnated in my lifetime for sure. And it brings me to tears to think about the fact that she's gone. So if I could sing with Whitney Houston, I mean, I know she would outshine the hell out of me, but her voice, and I've had the pleasure of singing with many people that I wanted to sing with, like Laura Berman. Laura Berman, I don't know if you know her. She's a New Thought artist, but she has a tone in a way that reminds me of Whitney. And then there's Gary Lynn Floyd, who has that same that that pure and I've gotten to sing with him, you know. I've gotten to sing with some amazing people who are with us now. But I mean, it would probably be, I mean, or Aretha. I don't know, something crazy. I don't know. It's a crazy question to think like,
Those
what
are all
if?
great choices. Great
Yeah,
choices.
thanks.
So, one thing that I noticed about you, well, first of all, let's plug your website, amysteinberg.net. Um, one thing I read about you is that you are also a graphic artist. You design multimedia pieces.
Well, I'm a painter primarily. These things behind me, a lot of them are mine. These birds are mine with the tulips. I during the I've been creating paintings for years now, but the pandemic really got me deep into painting, and I was very prolific during the pandemic. I painted hundreds of paintings and was able to sustain a living doing that. I have kind of a crazy story. I don't want to go too deep into it, but maybe when I come visit you and I can have a coffee and then we can talk about it. But
Coffee.
I got I got hired to be a minister here in Asheville at a place that was a creation spirituality church. And the week the pandemic hit, the very first Sunday that churches closed, they fired me after 6 months.
Wow.
It was humiliating. They did not disclose any reason. There's a lot, and you hear things like that, right, all the time about churches, um, and you know that it had to do with the board more than it had to do with the congregation, right? Always
Mm-hmm.
that. And I hadn't gone to ministerial school, so I didn't know the basics really that for instance that when you go into a center or a church that's already established pretty well that you just don't change anything for the first really 5 years. You just don't touch anything. You just kind of go in there and talk. um, but I wanted to change everything, and partly that's because I had been studying New Thought. I didn't know really creation spirituality, which is a beautiful teaching, Matthew Fox, and I don't know if you know those studies, but it's very earth based. It's like earth based Christianity, basically. It's beautiful, but it's not anything that really was my calling. So I know God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And when I got fired, like I said, that Sunday, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And so here I was in Asheville. I had moved across country from San Diego for this big job. And I'd bought a house, and I was like, what am I going to do now? And I created my own online ministry called House of Love and Light. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but
I didn't
um,
know, but I saw it mentioned on your website.
yeah,
So,
if you go to houseofloveandlight.org, or if you go to facebook.com/love and light Asheville, I still am doing it. During the pandemic, I did it every Sunday at 11 a.m. It was very like hippy dippy. I did a little bit of astrology. I made my own thing. All the things that I love. I had somebody picking tarot cards, or, oracle cards, just fun stuff, mostly New Thought, but spiritual and not religious. And people needed a place to go. And at first it was really popular because I think we were all holed up in our houses and nobody had really figured out the online thing just yet.
yeah.
So it really had a booming start. And now it's kind of, my audience has gotten smaller, my community's gotten smaller. So I do it twice a month, and I do it at 4:44 p.m. instead, because I'm doing churches, I'm doing other centers, and I can only do it twice a month because I'm starting to travel. Like, I get to
Right.
travel to you. I'm
Yeah.
so excited. And it's like life is, don't you feel like this reborn energy? Like we're all
Yeah,
just
I
like
mean, yeah,
reinvigorated.
things are starting to return to normal.
Yeah.
I keep doing that.
Hopefully it'll never I don't know if we'll ever go back, because it feels like we had such a huge lesson, which was slow down.
Yeah,
There's no there. There's
yeah,
no there. You know what I mean? That
right.
was my biggest lesson of the pandemic, was like, be here now. Like, there is all the striving, all the ambition, all the pushing, all the do, all the output. It's like we all just stopped.
Yeah,
and I did continue painting and I did create House of Love and Light, but I slowed down. And it was just, I hope we never speed up that fast again.
Yeah,
There is that kind of tendency when you get that energy to want to overdo it. Uh,
sure.
but I'd like to see us keep that. Um,
I would hope so, but
yeah,
I fear that as we get back into the swing of things, that
we'll
some
lose it.
people anyway,
Yeah.
hopefully not.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll never forget.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, it was really an extraordinary time for everybody. I
Wasn't
know
it?
we as a church went through so much. It was a big
I bet.
adjustment. I guess every church really faced,
Yeah.
do we hold
Huge.
it? Do we hold in-person services? Do we social distance? Do we? Yeah, and of course, I guess one of the benefits is that we really refined our use of live streaming, which is good. And there's still people out there who prefer to watch it on the live stream. Me
Yeah.
personally, I would much rather be around actual people.
Yeah.
You
It is nice.
know?
It is nice. It's nice to
Yeah,
have the option too. It's nice
yeah.
if you don't want to get out. But hey, speaking of live streaming, do you think we'll live stream the concert?
Well, it's interesting you raise that question, and we can talk about it. We could certainly do it, but will it deter people from attending in person?
Hmm. I don't know. If I'm speaking to those who would consider coming out, I would say come out. It's absolutely not the same. But if there are folks that can't come out, maybe they're ill or they're not feeling well, I'd like to make it available. I mean, there's definitely no comparison, especially to a concert, to being
Absolutely.
live than to being online. But I would say we could make it available and maybe do a love offering or something like that. Because it's so different. It is so different online than it is in person. But we can discuss this afterwards after we do this
Absolutely.
interview
Yeah.
and
I mean,
get a
I have
sense.
mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, me
But
too.
as you said, let's save that for
Yeah. Okay.
after the interview.
And maybe if you're
So
watching this and you have a feeling about it, you could let Reverend Michael know, and that way.
not a reverend.
Oh, you're not a reverend? Okay. Are
No.
you the music director?
I'm actually president of the board. We
Oh,
don't
okay.
have we don't have a full-time minister at the moment.
Oh,
We
okay.
are since August of last year, we've been using guest speakers every
Oh,
week.
nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
So no, I'm not Reverend Michael, but
Okay.
thank
Well,
you.
maybe you'll bring me back down to speak at some point.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd
Yeah, I
be
would love
cool.
that. I'm speaking in Stewart
Yeah,
the following day. So I'm really excited. That's part of the trip. We
right.
kind of wanted to connect with the two communities.
Unity of Stewart is, I guess, sort of our sister
Yeah.
congregation. It was actually Jen Erickson who let me know that you were coming to town and said, "Hey, do you want to host a concert?" I said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." So I'm hoping that all you folks up in Stewart,
Yeah.
we want you to come.
Thanks,
So
Jen. We love you. This is so awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about. Well, first of all, I one thing I saw in your bio is that you actually did was it a play at the Quillo Center in West Palm Beach?
Yeah. Cool story about that is that I was in the Black Box Theater. Have you ever been to Willow? Do you know the Black Box Theater?
Well, I
So that
know the Quillo is now known as
it's
Palm
gone
Beach
now, right?
Drama Works, and
Okay.
they've upgraded it, and it's actually a really cool facility. So yeah, I am familiar with it.
Yeah. Well, it was amazing because I was in the black box while Valerie Harper was working Looped. Did you see
I
Looped?
saw that show.
Tallulah Bankhead?
Yes,
Yeah, so she was working Looped, which went on to Broadway, which she won a
yes,
Tony for.
yeah.
And she and I connected so strong. She came to see my show. My show was a one-woman show where I played six different characters. It was about God and sexuality, spirituality and sexuality, basically.
Hmm.
And it's probably my most proud one-woman show. I've written six different ones, but the characters were hilarious, and it was hilarious. We were going to try to bring it off Broadway, but things changed and I wound up moving up to Charlotte to be the music director for Christy Snow. So I left Florida. But yeah, it was awesome. We ran it for 3 months on the weekends, and it was quite fun. I also did Oh My God, Don't Stop all over the country. I went to different places, and there that was like sort of my Broadway dreams show. But I don't know, it just, it ran its course, I think.
So
I
you
might bring it back out though.
yeah, I was gonna say, would you ever consider doing it
Oh
again?
yeah, yeah. It's so fun. It's a one act, so it's like an hour. It's a little over an hour, and I mean, it's hilarious. It is dirty, but it is spiritual, but it's funny. I play a Jewish woman who's in. She's going to the temple. She's learning about stooping with chutzpah. You know, it's very funny, and then it's just about each character sort of goes on a spiritual journey, and then it's just very funny. It's cute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wish I had seen it.
it's cute. It
So,
was it was definitely not New Thought, but New Thought audiences would love it,
sure,
because you get all the jokes. And I've never met a New Thought audience that isn't cool.
I
You know what I
haven't
mean?
either. I haven't either.
Yeah.
I think
We're the coolest.
we're absolutely.
I think we're the coolest spiritual people that are, we're funny. Yeah.
Well, I
So,
think it's, anybody who's exposed to New Thought, if they've come from a traditional religious background, it's kind of a breath of fresh air.
yes.
It's not as regimented. I mean, one of the things that strikes everybody who comes to our church is all the hugging. I mean, I grew up Catholic, so,
Oh, yeah.
hugging, that was unheard of.
Yeah. And I mean, the first thing I noticed, the very first center I went to, somebody dragged me. I was doing a show at a yoga center in Dallas, and the first place I went, it was pretty amazing when I look back that it was Petra and Michael Gott. Michael Gott was the
Oh,
musician at Unity. I'm sorry, Center for Spiritual Living Dallas, and I just thought these people are insane. There is no way you could be this happy. Like I thought it was kooky. I did not until you're ready for it. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
if you're not ready for joy, then you're not going to resonate. You're going to think it's Pollyanna, and it's not. It's a way of life. But so
right.
flash forward a few months, and I went to it was Spiritual Living Center of Charlotte, I think was the first one that I played at, and it was just I was ready. It's like I was ready for it, and I was like, "Oh, they really are that happy." And then years later, I played at CSL Dallas, and I know those
Yeah,
folks there, Karen Fry, and Michael, of course, went on to be a Unity minister
right.
at Unity of Houston, and it's such a cool community to be a part of. I always want to cry when I because you don't get to do interviews that often, and when you get to do an interview, you get to really think about this teaching and how much it changes you and how many people you meet. I mean, as a musician, when you're traveling, I mean, to see people and to see people mature into ministers and singer songwriters, and it's a beautiful community. I'm honored to be a part of it, truly.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think if most people knew about New Thought, they would embrace it with open
Yep,
arms. But I think
that's
there's a
right.
lot of people who just don't know
Just
about it,
don't
or
know
they're
about it.
so entrenched in their current way of being
That's right.
spiritual. So,
I have a
yeah,
great quote that I always whip out when we start talking like that, which is from Ken Gordon, who is the president of Centers for Spiritual Living for years, president or creative or spiritual director, I'm not sure, but he said, "New thought, new thought is on the cutting edge of consciousness, and by definition, the cutting edge is not the mainstream."
yes, absolutely.
And so it's interesting when because I see leaders a lot, kind of down about their numbers or wishing they could be a mega church, you know what I mean? But the cutting edge of anything, by definition, it can't be the mainstream because it's like we're on that edge. But I do think it's if you look around, I mean, even in the past 10 years, look at I mean, Oprah, just to throw a name out
Yeah,
there. I know it's cheesy, but The Secret, these
right.
things that don't quite get into the teaching, but they kind of touch on it. Um, it's pretty fabulous to
It
see,
really is. Really
kind of
is.
coming into the mainstream. And it's funny because as we were talking about musicians today, me and my partner, I thought about Lizzo because my first dream as a musician was I could change the world with music. That I can change the world. I would picture myself in like amphitheaters with thousands and thousands and thousands of people like talking about love and love yourself and Lizzo is doing that now. And Lizzo is
Yeah,
huge. I mean, she is just an absolute phenomenon. And she's broken so many barriers and shattered so many things with, her ideas. And she stands up on stage and says, "Love yourself," which is
yes,
ultimately what Louise Hay was teaching us. Love
yes, indeed.
yourself, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was impressed with Lizzo. I didn't know much about her, but I heard her interviewed on
She's
Howard Stern show of
amazing.
all
Yeah.
things. She's really amazing, very intelligent, incredibly talented, not just from the
Incredibly.
genre of music that
Flute
she,
and funny and
yeah,
music and dancing. And she's everything. She's everything.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And she's new
let's talk.
thought. She doesn't know it, but she is.
Yeah, right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your latest album called Big Bang Breaks. Just
Yeah.
came out a couple of months ago, I think. Uh, Tell us a little bit about it, how it came to be, and
Well, it was definitely time to record. I like to make a record every couple years at least, and it had been a while, and I had written some things, and I was so excited to work with producer Ross Cooper again. He's a young man out of LA now, and it was just me and him, and we did it all through the computer. So we had these sessions where we were live, and I would send him like vocals and to a click track or whatever, and then we would work together online. It was an absolutely modern experience of recording a record. I have a little bit of a setup here. I don't think you can really see it, but I've got a pretty decent mic and my piano is right here. And
oh wow.
so, yeah, I thought I could sing you a song if you wanted me
You should
to. I could do
accompany
something for
yourself.
you. I could sing you a little something. Um, but so we did it all right here, and it was awesome. There's a couple tunes on there that are really new thought, and then there's a lot of love songs on there. Me and my partner broke up for a few months, and some really good stuff came out of the heartbreak, and we're back together now, so it's okay.
That's great. I started listening to it this morning, and I didn't listen to the whole thing, I confess, but
Yeah.
one of the songs I really liked was Trouble. Now, is that about your breakup?
No, that is about addictive habits and tendencies. The
Okay.
things that
No
we do
wonder it
that,
resonated.
you know what I mean? Like the things
Yeah.
that we do that, I think about it as being, is it in my DNA to be this way? We survived, right? So we were always looking for trouble. We were always looking out for the tiger that was coming after us, right? So we were now as we've evolved, we don't really have the tiger coming after us anymore, but we're still looking for the trouble. And that translates sometimes into, I think, doing stuff that's bad, getting into and then it's like those demons that are in our head, like those things that um the you're not good enough, this just the stories, that the false beliefs, as we say, that we conquer, and turning, if you listen to those lyrics in there, it says, run from the monsters in my head, run from the existential dread, run to the beauty of this world, of this life, even when I'm in a self-destructive time. So sometimes I'll be acting out, and we all have it as like the whammy game, right? You're drinking too much, or then you're eating too much, or then you're fantasizing too much, and then you're lazy too much, and that all the sins or whatever when we're off the mark. And what I can always do with this teaching is turn to the beauty, turn to the good, turn to the forgiveness, and that's what that song's really about, is being easy on that trickster. It's that trickster energy. It's the part of us that wants to get into trouble. I have
Right.
that really strong. I'm that fool in the tarot cards, that archetype of the wild woman. I just want to get into some trouble.
Yeah, yeah. I think everybody has an element of that in their
Exactly.
personalities.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for bringing that tune up. I'll do it for you.
sure. So your concert is, of course, this Saturday, 7 p.m. at Unity of Jupiter. Are you going to be doing new music, old music, a mixture?
Oh yeah, I'll be doing stuff from all my records. So when you come, you can buy 5 CDs. No, just kidding, but kind of kidding. But I'll do stuff from the old stuff. I'll do some new stuff. I might do a cover. I rarely do covers. It's a huge discography. So, but yeah, I'm super excited to play
Yeah,
a show.
we're excited too. And one thing I should mention is that before the show at 6 p.m. we're calling it a cocktail hour. It's not
Ooh,
really cocktails, but
that's
we'll
great
be,
though.
we'll
Coffee,
have
whatever.
wine, cheese, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I encourage everybody to come early so you can take advantage of that. And
I'll be there.
I would hope so.
I'll be there having
Yeah,
some cheese, even
yeah,
though that
cool.
dairy's not good for your vocal cords, but
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
are you a singer,
So
Michael?
what's that?
Are you a singer?
A bit, a
And
bit.
I can tell you love the theater because you knew about Looped and
Yeah, well, I'm actually, and this is really shouldn't be part of the interview, but I'll
well,
mention it
whatever.
anyway. I'm actually an aspiring actor. I mean, it's something that I love doing, and in
That's
fact,
awesome.
unfortunately, I'm going to have to miss your show because I'm going to
No.
be in a show up in Stewart.
Oh, well, that's
So
great.
yeah,
Well, I'll
yeah,
miss
yeah.
you at the show for sure.
I know. I'm really bummed about that, but it just, the
Yeah.
scheduling
Yeah.
happened that way.
Well, that's another reason to go on the computer, and that way you could always rewatch it if you know,
There you go.
there's another thought.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, if
So,
Michael's not going to be there, then you definitely, whoever's watching this, you got to come.
yes, that's an order.
An order. Come be
All
with
right.
me.
Well, listen, Amy, it was wonderful chatting with you and getting to know you.
You too.
And again, I encourage everybody watching and listening to come out and see Amy. Now, are you going to be performing solo, or do you have musicians
Yeah, I'm
coming?
just gonna be me on the piano. Just me and the piano. And I understand you have a baby grand there, which I just love to play a real piano. There's just nothing like it.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, cool. So thanks again, Amy, and
Thank you.
thank you all for watching. And we look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Awesome.